All right, so let me introduce this illustrious panel that we have before you today, everyone. Dr. Elise Taylor. Dr. Taylor.
Anya Curie.
I hear you. All right, you knew it was coming. She is a senior policy advisor in the Office of Policy at the U.S. Department of Energy. Prior to returning to DOE, Dr. Taylor worked with the National Governors Association, advising governors' offices on electricity policy, energy cybersecurity, as well as energy resilience. Dr. Taylor Anyikiri, all right, has a doctorate and master's in electrical engineering from the Georgia Institute of Technology with a focus in renewable energy and public policy. She is also one of my former fellows from the AAAS Science and Tech Policy Fellowship, which we have been talking about. And then next we have Dr. Iris Camacho. She serves as the Senior Project Manager at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in the Office of Pollution Prevention and Toxics. Dr. Camacho's academic background includes a Bachelor of Science degree in Biological Sciences from Virginia Tech and a PhD in Microbiology and Immunology from the Virginia Commonwealth University Medical Center. Hello. It's always a pleasure.
Hi.
And Dr. Veronica Segarra, who many of you all met yesterday because she was able to attend in person, is an associate professor in the Maryland E. Novation Endowed Chair in Biological Sciences and Chemistry at Goucher College. Dr. Segarra completed her PhD in biophysics and biochemistry at Yale. As an undergraduate, Dr. Segarra completed her BS in chemistry and BA in chemistry in the University of Miami. And then last but not least, we have Dr. Joseph T. Bonneville Jr., who is a subject matter expert within the Department of Defense, where he leads disruptive technology incubation and maturation for the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, Journal of DOD Research and Engineering. Dr. Bonneville holds a PhD in Mechanical and Material Science Engineering from the University of South Florida. Dr. Bonneville has earned a Master's of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering at Carnegie Mellon University and a Master of Science and Bachelor of Science degrees in Biomedical Engineering and Mechanical Engineering at the University of South Carolina. And Dr. Bonneville is also one of my colleagues at MSRDC as a consultant. He is also one of my fellow former AAAS fellows. So welcome, everyone. So we're going to dive right into these questions. So all of the students had an opportunity to craft questions that they wanted to ask you. And so I have been able to sort through them and compile a few that I think you all might be interested in helping them to answer. And then I will also open it up to the floor if they would like to add any additional questions. So my first question will go to Dr. Elise. What kinds of decisions does the state, local, tribal, and territorial engagement team at the Office of Policy make?
We work to do a variety of things. I work on really engaging with states, locals, tribes, and territories. I'll give some factual things to say that we've done. So we work a lot with the Secretary of Energy, the White House, and Congress. So when the Infrastructure, Inflation, and Adjustment, the IIJA passed, we worked a lot to help pin some of that legislation and do some technical advising. So some of that's like actually what states need and kind of writing that in, but also receiving pieces of legislation from other people and say, hey, this is how this would affect states, or this should be written this way. So that's some of the things that we do in terms of actually what we do in terms of answering questions. But I also do a lot of working with states now that that bill has passed, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act, working with states to implement those bills, answering questions they have about, am I eligible? What should I be looking for? And really kind of spreading the message about what funding is available, how to apply, especially when it comes to things like the tax credits and other programs the DOE is rolling out, doing a lot of engagement with those communities to make sure they know about that information, but also making sure they have the information they need to apply.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So my next question is for Dr. Camacho Ramos.
Okay.
As someone who is passionate in advocating for mentoring,
Mhm.
how do you approach mentorship, and what advice do you have often? Do you often share with those looking to make positive impact through public service?
I think, when I came to EPA, I did not know a lot of the activities or expertise that I have right now. So, and I think that part of that, I gained all of that knowledge and experience through good mentorship. I really had a very good mentor. And I think since I had that experience, I decided that I wanted to reciprocate with people. So I think that um, just to let you know, when you get your degree and you go to an agency or your new job, typically you have to learn a lot on the job. That's going to be very typical in the federal government. So how do I approach mentorship? I just want to make sure that if you are a new employee onboarding, that you are you have a partner, typically a senior scientist or engineer or somebody that has been in the agency for a long time to guide you on what to do or not to do. Some of that is about guiding you on technical aspects of your work if you're going to be, supporting scientific activities, and also learning the culture of the organization. Sometimes I think it's important through mentorship to guide people. What are the norms, the practices that your organization has? So in that way, you are slowly and incrementally growing up as an employee. And sometimes people don't know that, and they just wonder why they're not being promoted or why they're not being moving up the ladder. And I think part of that is also learning the culture. So that's how I approach. I think that it's important to partner the new employees with seasonal scientists and engineers. And then I think you had a second part of the question that I don't know if I answered, but maybe you can repeat it again if I did not address it in my response.
Or they asked, how do you, well, it says, what advice do you often share with those looking to make a positive impact through public service?
Got it. So I think a lot of the individuals that we get at the agency are very passionate about climate change, environmental justice, renewable energies. Those are kind of the themes that I have been hearing through this engagement. And I think it's important to empower them and just make sure that they can participate in the different activities that the agencies or the agencies have, because we collaborate with other federal partners. I think that's important because a lot of the new employees are shy. They don't want to be speaking up in meetings when they are interacting with other people that have been around for a long time. So I think that making sure that the new employees, and the new scientists and engineers feel comfortable at sharing ideas, contributing to conversations is important. I think that this gets into Simon, your session earlier about power. I think it's about influencing decision making. So I think empowering people to participate in these conversations, having a seat at a table, is a form of power. And I think that that's what I like to do. So in that way, they can see how they start making a difference.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Bonnell. So I'm gonna blend together a couple of the questions into one. So how have you been able to integrate all of your engineering disciplines that you have been technically trained in the execution of your position?
So I think that's First off, thanks for having me. Thank you all for having me. I work well with Simone at MSRDC, so welcome to the students as well. That's not been on purpose. I'll say that. I have taken a very convoluted path. If you're faith-based, I'll say I follow God, but if not, just one of those things where it's divine intervention for me. I have been classically trained in three different kind of areas of biomedical engineering, mechanical engineering, and material science. And I guess you could say the real springboard is that those three came together when I took the AAAS fellowship, because I was able to utilize kind of my tech background as well as my ability to go and enjoy talking public policy with folks to make my own position. And so my position within the DOD is really, for lack of better words, a made up position. It came about because of networking. I'm sure you guys have talked about networking already. I'm sure it's not because of, I am a genius at in any shade of that form, but more so I was able to network and say, hey, there's a need here. I see a gap. I can fill that need. You guys should really try this out. And so that is kind of what led me where I'm at. It's a very weird answer to that question. It was one of those things that I recognize that we all get the same technical training. You go through, you have a curriculum, you're going to become ABIT accredited, you're going to get that training. So what stands you apart is, as an engineer or a scientist, being able to communicate science policy, being able to work in teams, and being able to really collaborate. My colleague, Dr. Camacho, just talked about really understanding how you can empower yourself and how you can give power to others as you move forward, and really consensus building. If you work in the federal government, everything is about consensus building. How can you get everybody on your team and then be able to move a project forward? Those are kind of the soft skills that we don't always necessarily harp about when we're in the engineering curriculum, because we're just trying to make sure we understand vector calculus, or we're trying to understand, what's the next project do. But those are the skills that I think I've been able to kind of weave together, and then be able to use those to say, hey, I have an interest in advanced electronics. I'm very interested in doing these things and helping the warfighter. What do you have for me? And the PhD does help. I won't tell you any lies. It gets you through a lot of doors. It allows you to have conversations that I wouldn't have been able to have any other way. But I don't use what my PhD is in at all anymore. And so it's kind of, I've built my own path. I'll pause there because I think that's a long answer, but that's kind of, the short answer is really using your soft skills to navigate to where you want to go.
And that was well stated. I think I mentioned this yesterday to the participants that there were three of us in the room yesterday. It was Dr. Mapes from DOE, Dr. Sagara was there, and I was there. And I said, we all have PhDs, but we all do completely different things. And I think that's critical to understanding how you can utilize that PhD and go into different, it could be in public service work, it could be in private industry, it can be in a lot of different spaces. You can go into academia and still contribute utilizing the skills that you have developed in that curriculum. So Dr. Sagara, you are the next person to be asked a question. So the question is, you have a lot of publications regarding inclusivity and diversity among scientific groups. How do you do professional and scientific studies to combat this issue? And what kind of places of higher education do you assist? And how can they be assisting you better?
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'll just give I'll touch very quickly on what drove me to, as a trained scientist, contribute to that area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that while doing my scientific work, I realized that I had the opportunity to be in spaces and identify gaps of things that were needed to make those spaces more equitable for people that came behind me. And so that really drove me to get involved with my scientific disciplines through my scientific societies to try and understand what were some of the social forces that were operating within our discipline. And ultimately, we ended up collaborating with each other, the members of the societies that I belong to, and doing good work. And so ultimately that led to, well, how do we let others know about this work, what we're learning together? And so the way that we decided to do that was publications, peer-reviewed publications, because that's a language, right? A unit of knowledge that we're all, as scientists, we're all very familiar with. And so that's what drove me to that work, to that body of work. So while I've been doing my science. And I think in terms of being a scientist, it's very important to be a socially engaged one, right? And I do that through my work as an educator, right? I do that through my diversity and equity work. And that hopefully is changing my world, my microcosms, right? It's making the world around me a better place for me and for others and for my students. So then I feel like one of the things that we've learned is about diversity, equity, and inclusion is that the responsibility of making a welcoming environment for all within our disciplines, it belongs to everyone. Doesn't matter what your background is, doesn't matter what your lived experience is. It's everyone can take a role in creating authentic spaces for others to join the discipline. And by being aware of our biases, we all have them, right? By being intentional about how we interact with others and how we honor them, their experience and their expertise, we can create those environments. And all that good energy just returns back to you and makes your going a lot easier too. So that's what I would say. One of the things that we like to keep in mind as scientists is this idea that oftentimes we think of scientists as people at academic institutions, but scientists are, it's much broader than that, right? In fact, I think, you know, I'm the only one here, I'm the minority here, so to speak, in terms of I'm still, all of my work is centered around an academic institution. And so there's so many different ways in which you can decide to be a scientist. And so hopefully you're exploring all of that space so that ultimately you will land somewhere that maximizes the impact that you can have in the world and also your happiness. Because you want to be a happy scientist doing whatever it is that you're doing and changing the world, however you want to change it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I was gonna follow up with a question around, this is just to add on to what you just stated, but do you think, I know one of the things that you work on is trying to get a better understanding for those that are in STEM, but no longer in the lab, to have a place where they still feel included within STEM. How are you doing this, and how is that that work being projected and disseminated?
Thank you. Well, I think one of the ways in which we're trying to do that is essentially sharing their stories. Stories are so powerful. And a great place to share those stories are in the context of our scientific disciplines or scientific societies, because they very much are part of our community. And so just lifting those voices up, and so everyone can be part of that. We can post those on our websites, highlight them as case studies on our publications and on our data, right? But always stories are so powerful. And so we can all learn those stories, value those stories, and share them forward. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so Dr. Camacho Ramos, next question is, has your work at EPA involved any of the U.S. territories? And if so, were there any differences in how these regulations were enforced in comparison to U.S. states?
That's a good question. And then the simple answer is no. I have been in the EPA for 20 years, but I have worked in the program office in DC that evaluates the safety of chemicals. So that is a national program. A lot of the work related to the U.S. territories happen in the regional offices in EPA. I think for Puerto Rico is Region 4. I'm not sure about the other U.S. territories, Hawaii and others. so a lot of that good work comes from the regional offices because they have to interact with the communities in their states, also the state government. I think that we the program offices are working on the major policies, the major regulations, and then the regional offices help us in implementing those policies and regulations. So, I'm assuming that because we collaborate with regional offices all the time, that they are aligned with the major goals and the major strategies or policies related to how we regulate chemicals or enforce certain things related to the environment. And that's what I would assume, that basically there is a good coordination and collaboration to make sure that the intent of these policies, regulations are articulated well when they're being implemented in the regional offices, including U.S. territories. Each region, each state or have problems, challenges. Like, for example, I was in Puerto Rico 3 weeks ago, and I went to Vieques. I don't know if some of you remember, there was a Navy, the military was in Vieques for many, many years ago, and then they left, and it's a Superfund site. So it's an island, small island that is highly contaminated. And I spoke with some people that are involved in some of these efforts, and I can tell that when you talk to people on the ground, the communities, they are, what I heard was that they needed to see more in terms of the remediation. So you can see that there is the perspective from the federal government, the regulators, but when you go to the communities, they can give you a different perspective. And I think it's important that you connect with the people, the communities, to make sure that you have environmental justice and you have a sustainable future for everybody, the environment and also the individuals that are living in these communities.
Great, thank you. All right, Dr. Taylor Anikiri, I'm gonna ask you, you advise on a wide range of crucial issues. How do you prioritize which areas will be your focus at that moment? And can you share an example of a project or initiative where this approach was particularly impactful?
Yeah, we do advise on a wide variety of issues in the Office of Policy. We normally take our direction from the Secretary of Energy and what goals the department is trying to accomplish within each administration. So this administration, they really prioritize equity and justice. And so a lot of our initiatives have kind of stemmed for that and making sure it's implemented in our policies. I think a good example would be when we started on equity, but also being a bit more community focused. DOE's also always been very technology focused. And so when I first started, one of the things I helped to kick off the ground is a program known as Communities LEAP, the Local Energy Action Program, which is our way of trying to actually reach into communities. So it was a $16 million funding program to help communities basically enact an energy action plan to say, what does the clean energy transition look like for us? And part of the criteria for that was you had to be an EJ community, like an economic justice or energy justice community. And we were looking for people that have been impacted by previous DOE policies and making sure we could help those people transition forward. So we do advise on a variety of things, but really kind of within this administration, we have a set of priorities and really trying to align with those priorities. Now, if something comes up in Congress, we also kind of make adjustments for that, but it's kind of what leads us.
Thank you. All right, and Dr. Bonneville, I have a question for you that was posted here. I don't know how much you can divulge being a DOD, but the question is, as a subject matter expert for the DOD, you lead disruptive technologies incubation and maturation. Could you provide insight into specific disruptive technologies or projects that you've been involved in?
Oh, no, I can't do that. No, but what I can say, I should put an asterisk for this. The views that I am representing are those of my own and not the U.S. government as I move forward, because I want to make sure I don't get myself in any trouble that this is recorded. but so specific projects I've worked on, can't give a lot of detail, but what I can tell you is that in a global sphere of things that we all are involved in, you see a lot of things about disinformation, AI. You see a lot of things about how we can combat that in cyber attacks. So, everything from computer programming skills to the race to sub 5 nanometer chips. My background is in semiconductor manufacturing. And so if you know anything about that, sub 5 nanometer chips are really computer chips, that is, are what really powers machine learning, AI, and artificial intelligence. So you need the ability for these things to move faster and more voracious. A big deal with that is we don't make a lot of those chips here in the United States. Actually, we make less than 5% in the United States. That poses a huge, obviously, a national security threat. And so those are type of problems that I work on. How can we do things in-house? How can we utilize new technologies such as AI to advance our warfighter, and things that are life-saving on the battlefield, right? So how do we ensure that we can use sensors that are tech that are put on a soldier's body and they're injured, so that we can predict the possibility of life, as well as how fast do we need to get to them. So what is an emergency and what is not? It's always an emergency if it's a soldier on the ground, but if you get shot in the toe versus getting shot in the neck, you have a big difference. Those are the kind of problems I work on. They, like everybody else on the call, everybody else that's my government colleagues on the call, we work at the discretion of our bosses. My boss is the Undersecretary of Research and Engineering. So there's a national defense strategy that has 14 critical technology areas. These are all Googleable, so I'm not going to go through and name them all, but if you look at the 14 critical technology areas, those are the ones that I really focus on. So everything from 5G, again, like we said, advanced electronics, to airplane platforms. So again, that's Googleable. I don't want to waste your time with that, but there are 14 critical technology areas that the National Defense Strategy focuses on. Congress puts that out every year. It just came out, and you could definitely take a look at it and see where the money's going.
Well, thank you very much. So Dr. Segarra, my question for you is, what are your general suggestions that you have for short-term postdocs who are in pursuit of research scientist positions?
Thank you so much. I would say that my advice would be that it's never too early to start looking at what's out there, the opportunities that's out there. That type of position, research position, you can be a researcher in many different places, right? So which places would you enjoy most being a researcher at? And so I would start exploring that space as soon as possible, either by looking at what job ads are out there that are looking for people. That might be one space. Another space is looking at social media and some of the stories that are out there that highlight career stories of folks who are doing good work, and see whether those stories ring true to you and might be of interest. It's like, do you see yourself maybe having a similar path? And so in which case, maybe you want to reach out to those folks and folks like them and set up an informational interview. I know that we talked a little bit about that yesterday. In my experience, I find it rare that when someone is approached to share with a early career scientist about their career, it's unlikely you'll get a no, right? Everybody likes to share their stories, in my experience. So you can send an email or even a message on LinkedIn about what are some of the questions that you have about the career path that that individual has taken. And chances are they'll be able to either connect with you directly or maybe redirect your inquiry to someone who might have the interest and willingness to do so. And then I think we talked a little bit yesterday about volunteering or internships, right? And so maybe casting your net wide when you're looking for internship opportunities so that you can land a paid one, right? I think people more and more are realizing that good work, even from early career scientists who are learning their craft and exploring, is very valuable. Because you bring new ideas to the workplace and you bring new questions, and that might stir new thoughts and processes of doing things where you're working or doing an internship. So I would encourage you to look for internship opportunities. Your career office at your university likely knows of resources for that. There are also summer programs, and even this program that you're participating on now, right? It's one of those. And so keeping an eye out for opportunities and sharing with each other. I think one of sometimes the things that we forget to mention is that within your network, you have each other, you have peer individuals. And so if you know each other, if you have an idea of what each other would like to attain through their career, if you know about an opportunity that might be useful for someone else, you might be able to share it. It's happened to me. People have shared opportunities with me that I have applied for, and I have landed and have really opened doors for me. And I will forever be thankful for those, recommendations. So I encourage you to explore early and not only think about yourself, but maybe others. So get to know each other, your peers here of the program, and stay in touch. Thanks.
Definitely. All right. So Dr. Camacho Ramos, this is a question that I'm framing for one of the students, because in many of my conversations with the students over this past few months, I've gotten a chance to understand what they might be interested in, some of them. And one person in particular was interested in potentially a career in project management. So would you be willing to kind of share with us maybe some of the details of your work, or maybe what a day in the life of a project manager at EPA looks like?
Okay, so I think that's very good, because as a scientist or an engineer in a science organization, I think that I will tell you, you will end up doing project management, either being a scientist as part of a team, or being a team lead, or even being a manager. I have been a first line supervisor. So when you are supervising a unit, you're doing project management all the time. So I think that it depends it depends on your role. Like if you're a new staff scientist, you may be assigned to a team. Like, for example, in my office, we are evaluating the safety of chemicals, but you could be also working on water infrastructure initiatives of the Office of Water, or other projects in other program offices like the Office of Air. And you have to, depending on your duties, you will have to make sure that you're contributing to the team, that you are knowing the tasks, the deliverables. I think also many of the federal agencies are doing work through contractors. So I think part of doing the project management is about managing the products that you're getting from contractors. And and actually, I think agencies will train people to do the contracting management. And I remember going through the training. I'm a contracting representative, and a good portion of that training is about doing good project management of that particular contractual services. So I think it depends. If you're a staff scientist, you just have to keep monitoring your project, making sure that your results are obtained. If you're having problems, making sure that you're communicating with your supervisor. Now, if you are becoming a leader, or you're becoming a manager, then you're transitioning to more complex tasks, where you need to make sure that your unit is producing high priority products for the agency. And I think when that happens, you need to look at the performance of that unit. You also have to, report to your superiors about what you are accomplishing, what your challenges are. Also, you need to learn how to manage the budget, the resources, not only money, but also the human capital, people. And I think that when you're a manager or supervisor, you're going to spend more time looking at, budget expenditures, how many people you have, and things like that. And then communicating that sometimes to negotiate more resources. So, I hope that that helps give an idea of how things look like.
Yeah, I think it helped me to better understand what you do. And I think for many in this session today, I think that the participants that are in this space have already taken a course on how to manage budgets, I do believe, and the understanding of contracts versus grants, and knowing how that works in order to fund your research. And so what you all may not know is that Dr. Bonneville actually helped to co-create some of those curriculum that you all were taking. And so I wanted to ask you, Dr. Bonneville, as you have been speaking about your work with DOD, you have not spoken about your work at MSRDC. And as a consultant within our organization, what is it that you do in that space with your expertise?
That's a great point. I'm happy to see you all. This was the culmination of working with Dr. Mapes and Dr. Soso for a while. I mean, this was years. I think we started working on this before COVID. So if that puts in perspective how long this has been in the works. But to answer your question, what you find yourself, once you get a job that you like and you're enjoying it, you also find that it's a job and you have other passions, and your other passions can go everywhere from, skiing and running and biking to, I have been afforded an opportunity that a lot of people that are, I'll say this, I was the only one in my graduating class that looked like me, right? And so if you look at the numbers, I think it's 2% of PhDs in STEM are minorities. And so it's not a lot of us. And I was afforded an opportunity. I didn't have to pay for it. So I felt like that was something that as I get older and I want to look back and give back, I said, well, how can I help others do the same thing that I did if they really have an interest in that? And that led to, again, we talked about kind of all of the different things that I've done. It came out of the fact that I had already been doing consulting for technical innovations. So in my day job, I look at technical innovations for the DOD. In my consulting, I can do that, but I can't touch anything within the DOD. I can't look at it. I can't blink past it twice. I've signed away my firstborn child for that. And so what I do now is I can look at other organizations and see what they're doing, and then see if we can streamline the things that they're working on. And I was afforded the opportunity to work with MSRDC because it ticked two boxes. It helped the community that I think should be helped the most. And not even that they need the help as much more, they just need the chance, right? Somebody took a chance on me and said, hey, got decent grades. You ever thought about going to grad school? I can, as a personal story, I remember my master's professor came up and he said, you're graduating, what are you going to do? So I guess I'll just get a job. And he was like, you ever thought about going to grad school? And I was like, no, not really. He was like, well, I'll pay you. I was like, well, it sounds like I've got a new plan in life, right? And so, as I said, a lot of times things just happen by happenstance. And that was an opportunity that somebody took a chance on me. And so with MSRDC, I have been able to look at the things that I do as from a consulting standpoint, where I really work on technical innovations, solar energy technologies that are cutting edge and that are, vital to our renewable energy portfolio, as well as looking at giving back to the community that I think, that deserves a chance, for lack of better words, which is the MSI community or any other, HBCU, Hispanic serving institutions, tribal colleges, the folks that aren't the that aren't the MITs and the Stanfords and the Berkeleys of the world that don't have billion-dollar endowments to just go do whatever they want for research. Still have some of the smartest students, again, at these universities, they just don't necessarily have the upper hand for socioeconomic reasons. And so, we turned that into a labor of love. Dr. Mapes, to her credit, said, I want to do something different than we've been doing. We've been working with ORI students, but I want to try something different. And I want to utilize this network of folks that you have in your consortium to do that. And so, again, I'm so happy to see this. I mean, any project plan that you have is normally a 5-year horizon. And so, like, to see you guys and your students there actually going through what Simone has done a lot of work on and coming up with the professional development. Anything within the soft skills, that's what I really wanted to highlight. I already know you guys have the technical background. That's going to be fine. But how you interact with other individuals, how you work with a team, how you can understand implicit bias and how you can combat these things, how you can combat imposter syndrome, managing budgets. All of these things are things that nobody ever taught me, but we learned on the job. And what I have come to learn is in other universities and other places, they are learning these things. We just don't know it. And so this is what I try to bring to the other side of technology and innovation, is kind of, what do you need to know? What do you actually really need to know on the background? So I hope it's been fruitful. I've taken up enough of your time. Any more questions, I'm happy to answer, but I'd like to make sure that my esteemed family has more time.
Well, I appreciate that. And I will ask one more question, and then I will turn it over to the crowd. If there are any questions, please think of them, everyone, as you're in that space. And so my last question goes to Dr. Taylor Ankiri. How has your past experience influenced your approach to federal level policy advising at DOE?
I think my past experience has helped a lot. I would say this experience has been most helpful, as you talked before about the AAAS fellowship. So though my background is in energy and policy, I still needed the fellowship, I think, to get my way into the position that I'm in now. And during that fellowship, I learned a lot about how policy is made within the Department of Energy, where you could exert influence, learning some of those soft skills about how does this agency work, what are the things that we can do, what can't we do, how do I can't do within my agency, how do I partner with sister agencies? So I think I used a lot of that fellowship time to really understand what's happening within the Department of Energy and how I navigate. And I found that to be really helpful. I think DOE has a really good fellow culture in terms of the AAAS fellowship is one, but there are many other fellows that are in the Department of Energy. And so there's a good network of people to learn from, which I think was very helpful. But also people are open to meeting with you. I had lots of informal chats and coffees just to learn about different organizations within the DOE, which I think was very helpful. I also worked for the National Governors Association, which I think I got a lot of my community interaction skills with, learning how to work with states and kind of getting more information on the state side outside of the federal government. That was also very critical to the role that I'm in now. And I kind of weave those two worlds together. I work on federal policy, but look at through a state and local lens. How does federal policy interact with states and localities, and then kind of feeding that back in? What do states and localities need that the federal government could be addressing better? I think that was really good training to help me execute on the job that I do now.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Aisha, on the floor? Don't everyone get up at once.
Come on, guys. No questions. All that good information you got, and you have no questions.
Oh my goodness.
Somebody should be standing up and saying, "Can I get a job or an internship?" See, you got have to
Something. Goodness.
This is how a closed mouth doesn't get fed.
We got some UDC folks in here.
Right.
Can I ask a question from the
Okay,
colleagues
alright.
from the trainees? Is there anything that we shared that resonated with you? I'm curious with your stories so far. Thank you.
I'm hitting everybody with a snowball when we leave here.
You know what? And I'm gonna say, I'm gonna reiterate my point from yesterday. You see every person on this Zoom call right now, you need to be adding them to your LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Every single last person in here. Because if you know how LinkedIn operates, not only are you connected to these people if you add them, but you're connected to their network.
Mhm.
And so you can always go on LinkedIn and say, hey, you spoke at da 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 da. I really enjoyed that talk. And I also see that you know da 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 da.
Mhm.
Could you introduce me? Do you know anything about that person? Da 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 da. This is how you add to your network. And these are people you want in your network, because anytime I have ever asked anyone in this quadrant for anything, they have been able to assist me. And I tell you, those are allies that you want. And I preached that yesterday about the importance of having a strong and good network. And I will preach it again today. And I hope that you all did complete your exercise this morning of developing a LinkedIn page if you do not have one, and adding me on there, but also everyone that has come before you over the last 2 days. And if you cannot remember a name, look in your agenda to get it, so you have access in some place. So I want to say thank you all for your time. Is there anything you would like to add that you think? Oh, okay, I see your hand is raised. All right.
Yeah, just one quick tip on LinkedIn. Something I learned, I think, from a AAAS session is if you're going to follow up with the LinkedIn message request with somebody, it's good to say in that request where you met them, so that if a year from now or a year and a half you want to reach back out, there's already a thread there, and that they remember where you met them and you remember where you met them. So it's not such a weird or cold open. You at least start a thread there. So if you ever do need to follow back up, you at least can remember, where you met somebody. Because sometimes you remember the face, but I don't remember what conference. That's always very helpful.
I agree with that one. I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and someone said, "Oh, are you on LinkedIn? Let's add each other." And we were already connected on LinkedIn. We just couldn't remember from where. And I think by the end, we pretty much put it together and found out our parents were even neighbors. So we really connected further down. But that is a very good point, because you will forget if
Mhm.
you meet hundreds of people, thousands of people in the course of your lifetime. And so you do tend to forget where exactly you met someone from.
Mhm.
That's a very good point.
I would like to give, I would like to say that I want to encourage the students to contact me. I typically engage the students with other people in the agency. I like to connect them with scientists and engineers, because sometimes, you want to understand what they do to figure out what your path is. So feel free to connect with me. You can send me an email in LinkedIn, and I will be happy to help you with any questions that you have about EPA or career-related questions. And I'm sure that the other panelists are open to that.
Yeah. Okay. I see Kiana is in there. All right. What's your question,
We
sir?
have one question.
Sorry, Doctor. So this is maybe to a prompt. I mean, this is my question. Maybe is to irrelevant to this topic. I mean, does the DOE has a sponsoring program to support the universities to buy the like the large assets? For example, back in my university in New Mexico, they don't have the the 3D printing machine. I mean, today UDC's 3D printing machine really impressed me. So does the DOE has a this kind of supporting program for the university to buy the large assets?
I would say DOE does have several programs to work with their large assets. A lot of it's through our national labs. So if you look into the national labs, and if you're looking for a certain piece of equipment or program, that's your best avenue, is to be able to research the lab and then work on some kind of agreement. And there are also several fellowships that you can use to work at our national labs, like in the summer, or just to connect with them on research as well. So like ORISE is one mechanism that DOE uses heavily, but there are also direct fellowships with the national labs that are also very useful to do research in general, but also to work with some of their specialized equipment. They do have a lot of specialized equipment that you can't even find at many major universities.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. Do any of the other agencies, do you all have access to those as well? Like programs, summer programs that you might be aware of?
We do have the summer programs in EPA. Typically the announcement is issued in USA Jobs. You know, that's the repository that the federal agencies use to post announcements, you know, for, you know, permanent jobs or internships. Our summer internships for this summer already went out. And I heard that we got about 1,000 people applying. So we are now sorting through all of the resumes. So I I encourage people to go to USA Jobs, set up an account. So then you can set up notifications, and then you can get, you know, these announcements to your email account, so you don't have to manually go every day or every week to USA Jobs. Once these announcements are out, they're open for about 5 days or 7 days. So you need to act very quickly, and they're very competitive. So you know, you need to make sure that your resume is providing examples of your experience. And even if you don't have experience as you know, doing other internships, you can provide examples of classroom projects that you have been involved with, to explain your, you know, your interests, your passions. You need to make sure that your application is very competitive, because many people are going to be applying for the internships, but you can do it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for sharing that link.
I'll add that if, just to plug the DOD here, if any of you are planning to go to graduate school, already in graduate school and need funding, the SMART Fellowship, SMART, just like the normal letter SMART, pays for your entire graduate school experience. Is very much similar to the NSF, Graduate Research, GFRD, or whatever it's called now. Easy, pretty easy to get if you're aligning your research with the DOD critical technology area, like I talked about before. So if you can align those two things, $60K a year, and you get to go to school and get your PhD. So always welcome to talk to you about it. You can hit me on LinkedIn if you need any other questions.
Sure. That's a really good point. And I know there, you know, Tuweldi, who was in the room, who asked the question in the last session, he was a part of that SMART program, I believe. And so, you know, talk to your fellow colleagues that are in the room with you today, and some of their experience might be something that you could do in the future as well, if you haven't already completed something of that nature. So please look to one another. All right, and here he comes with a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
All right, so my name is Told. Did I introduce myself to Joe and? No, okay, so, and Miss Ramos, and okay, let me do it again. My name is Told. I'm a computer engineer student here at UDC. I am a rising junior with a 3.71 GPA. I am completely on board with smart energy, clean energy. I, in the past, with Dr. Dang, had won a competition with Amy for clean energy, for inventing a clean energy device. I just recently came from Oak Ridge, the National Laboratory, to participate in their workshop, and I'm also here today. So whoever's hiring for an internship this summer, I applied to nearly all of ORI's open position. Whether whoever wants to take me immediately, I am available.
Okay, thank you for letting us know about that. And you know, EPA is hiring, so there are going to be positions coming up, I know, in my office in the next several weeks. So my advice is go to USA Jobs, create an account, and make sure that You have notifications related to the type of jobs that you are interested, so you don't miss them. And then if you see something, you can connect with people in the agency and ask questions about the type of job that you would be getting into.
And I'll follow up with that. You should, if you have a chance, make sure you connect with us on LinkedIn. There are 2 conferences that are coming up. BEA, the Black Engineer of the Year Award, is February 15th through the 17th. I will be speaking at that. They give out internships on the spot.
Yeah, I'm up in Baltimore, right?
Yeah, in Baltimore, exactly.
Yeah, I'll be
And
there. I'll be there. I'm competing in another competition.
nice. And NSB is right after that in March, 3rd week in March.
Yeah, I'm in Atlanta. I'll be there too. You're going to both?
Yeah, I'll be at both. I will be at both speaking of it.
I couldn't find you on LinkedIn because it's only Joe.
Oh, thinking it's you guys got a pamphlet, right? It has the pamphlet with all of it.
In
It has the
the
bio.
agenda.
Yeah, it's in the so I didn't realize I joined from Zoom. I'm never on here. Sorry.
It's all good.
Connect with me, and then worst case scenario, I can hand walk you over to a few places I've used to work. United Technologies, Pratt Whitney. There's some places that you can definitely be able to do an internship.
Thank you. See you at work.
No worries.
Oh, see, I love it. I love it. And you know, people like Dr. Camacho send me links, and I that's why I tell you, join the link. I will add you to the LinkedIn group, because that is a space where I will gladly advertise any opportunities that she sends my way, because you all need to be applying for those opportunities. So I thank the panel today. Oh, we have a guest. All right. Hi, darling. All right. Yes. I love it. We have an added guest. So I want to say thank you to this panel. You all are amazing. And I appreciate you always for all that you do. So look out for an email from me coming your way. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Talk to you later, Simone.
All righty.